Hello, my name is Anna Marie Warren, and I teach English at Waxahachie Global High School in Waxahachie, Texas. And I'm very excited to be sharing Chapter 21 from our textbook, Models of Teaching. Chapter 21 talks about creating curriculums and the conditions of learning.
Teachers today can find themselves overwhelmed with the demands of reaching and teaching students of the 21st century. In the daily cycle of technology information overload, we can find stability and foundation in the writings of Robert Gagne. Gagne's work, Conditions of Learning, has been referred to as one of the most important books on learning and teaching. Robert Gagne was an American educational psychologist who lived from 1916 to 2002, and he received his degrees from Yale and Brown and impacted many students while he served as a professor at Connecticut College, Penn State University, Florida State University, and the U.S. Air Force. Chapter 21 focuses on developing curriculum that identifies and classifies a student's performance. So let's get started. Gagne classifies performances of students into 6 types of learning: specific responding, chaining, multiple discrimination, classifying, rule using, and problem solving. Specific responding is defined as making a specific response to a particular stimulus. The authors use an elementary appropriate example of a first grade teacher holding up a card, the card being the stimulus, on which the word dog is printed, and the children say dog, dog being the response. In secondary learning, I believe that teaching color archetypes would be a good example of this performance. Secondary students learning to associate colors with certain emotions and feelings. For example, what does the color blue make you think of? How about the color white? And even black? This level of learning is very important, and it is the basis for much of the information that we all possess today. The second response is referred to as chaining, and chaining is simply defined as making a series of responses that are linked together. And the textbook refers to Gagne's example of unlocking a door with a key, and also of translating from one language to another. Now, Gagne's reference of unlocking a door requires you to have a chain of events in order to get the end result. The first event would be you have to select a key. Well, you select that key, and then what do? You insert it into the lock, and then finally you turn the key, which will open the door. So that's how you get the job done. There's a chaining, a sequence of responses that gives you the end product. And also, when thinking about the English language, how about the phrase, how are you? You put this together, and this is a very meaningful phrase. And chaining occurs by putting those 3 words together. And similarly, they refer to the Spanish, como está usted? This is a chaining of words and responses. So we've got an example of a key opening a door, and then we've got an example of words in English and words in Spanish that reference the chaining response. Multiple discrimination is our 3rd type of learning that is referenced in Chapter 21, and this term is defined as learning when a student is learning in a variety of specific responses and chains, and they're learning how to sort those responses and chains out appropriately. And this has to do with previous learning experiences that a student has. And an example is given when a student is learning colors. So an elementary student would be learning colors of various objects in perhaps their home or their school classroom. The example of learning blue, like when a student first learns the color blue, it may be in reference to a blanket, maybe a personal item, and then later they can recognize that color blue when they're out and about shopping or perhaps riding in a car or something. They're able to associate that color from that first event of learning. So you have the chain reaction learning process there. Classifying is the next level of learning that we watch for in our students. And surprisingly, students are doing this at a very young age. Even by age 4 or 5, they learn so many concepts and categorizing techniques. They do this even before they get to school. But classifying is defined as assigning objects in classes denoting like functions. So students are able to recognize what things go together. It makes me think of the Sesame Street activity. To one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is kind of the same. It's been a long time since I've done Sesame Street. But students are able to identify based on colors and sizes and similar conditions. In the secondary level, or at the secondary level, you may think of life science where you're categorizing plant kingdoms. That could be a good example of classifying. Rule using is the fifth performance indicator. Now, I would like to think this is close to my own personal favorite rule of no clicky pens in the classroom, but it's really referring to the ability to act on a concept that implies action. And the example given in the textbook is in spelling, that we learn different concepts and different rules, such as I before E except after C, and also a consonant is doubled when adding ing. In math, you might think of the rule, or not necessarily the rule, but talking about please excuse my dear Aunt Sally when learning the order of operations for mathematics. So that might be a good secondary level example. Last but not least, we have problem solving, which is the highest performance indicator that we have. And problem solving is defined as the application of several rules to a problem not encountered before by the learning. And problem solving involves selecting the correct rules and applying them in combination. At the secondary level, a student can utilize problem solving in many ways. But at Global High School, we have a lot of engineering classes, and so our students have to problem solve in engineering, and they can take, for instance, they're learning about levers in engineering right now, and they can take the human body and look at how the body parts move and operate together, and they can apply that to machine building in engineering, because the levers work much like our body parts work. So they're able to take a problem that they've never encountered before, but use information that they have at hand just in a different way. So problem solving wraps up our 6 performance indicators. Gagne believes that these 6 classes of learning form an ascending hierarchy. In other words, in order for a student to achieve all 6 levels of learning, they first must have to start at the bottom, start with number 1, which would mean starting with specific responding. So they can't skip the levels on this, which means that our job as teachers changes. We're no longer standing in front of the kids in the classroom just simply lecturing, but we become a facilitator in the classroom. So we facilitate specific responding by providing the stimulus in the classroom, which, remember, he referred to the teacher holding up the card that said dog on it, and then the students therefore respond with saying the word dog. So a stimulus has been provided, which provokes a response in the children. And so from Gagne emphasizes that it's the learner's activity that results in the learning. And the function of the instructor is to provide the conditions that will increase the probability that the student will acquire the particular performance. And Gagne gives instructors 7 indicators that we are doing our job in the classroom. First of all, we are to inform the learner of the objectives for the day. And we do this already by writing our objectives on the board and also emphasizing that to the students. You know, students want to know the purpose for the information that we're passing on to them, and we can do that in such a way where they understand, they have objectives and goals for the class period. And we can do that by saying, for instance, today we're going to learn about, and then whatever you're going to learn about. And then we also want to direct them to how that relates to real life experiences and real life events going on. We also want to present stimuli to our students. This is visually a way for students to connect in the classroom. Also, we want to increase the learner's attention, and we want to help them recall what they've already learned in the classroom. Perhaps it's from the day before or 2 days before. Perhaps it's in another subject area, but we want to help them recall that information. I know in English I'm always teaching about literary devices and literary terms, and so I can refer back to a song project that we did that they've already learned this. They know these terms and devices, so I'm constantly reminding them of that. Also, we want to provide conditions that will evoke performance. We want our classroom to be a place that just generates all kinds of learning, that we don't have obstacles hindering our students on a daily basis. We also are to determine sequences of learning and help our students recall those sequences and that chaining effect. And the 7th instruction that Gagne has for us is prompting and guiding the learning. And we're not spoon feeding them through this process, but we are prompting them so that they recall on their own, so that light bulb goes off in their head, and they have this sense of accomplishment as we're guiding them. Gagne's hierarchy is useful in helping us select models appropriate for varieties of educational objectives. And it also reminds us of the multiple types of learning promoted by individual models and the attention that must be given to the varieties of performance as the students engage in the study of any important topic. On page 430, table 21.1 is especially helpful when looking at the types of performances and the models and how they relate to each other. Table 21.1 will also be especially helpful when designing your curriculum and determining your overall objectives. If you look on the chart, it gives you the types of performances and the models that correspond with each of those performances. And also note that when designing your curriculum that you should start with the most complex level, and that's going to be your problem solving level, and then you back your way into the lesson, so you know what exactly it is that you have to learn, and then you back into it. For our activity for this chapter, I've decided that we are going to also do a picture word inductive model activity. This particular activity will incorporate all 6 of the types of performances that Gagne has taught us about in chapter 21. Now, while the book refers to elementary age students doing this particular activity with picture and word association, I think that we can design a curriculum for the secondary level. In fact, I'd like to use something like this in my class this next week. But what I have selected is I have one fun video just to watch for elementary age students, and then a rather lengthy video, about a 5-minute video for the secondary level. And what I'd like us to do is to watch the video and then come up with lesson plan suggestions based on that particular video. Now remember, we're wanting students to associate words with the pictures that they see, and these are going to be pictures that have impacted our nation, and so we want students to associate with those pictures and to be able to relate words as they see the pictures. And some of them are going to be really quick, but we want them to relate words, and then we want them to relate experiences, and we want them to see the power in this visual and in their words and their thoughts, and to be able to have a writing assignment come out. Or perhaps you can think of another type of assignment that would be a good one. So we're going to watch the video, and then we're just going to brainstorm on sessions like we're sitting at a roundtable planning session. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you take away one thing. I know it seems like we just talked about 6 pieces of information today, but truly these types of performances are a good gauge for us to pay attention to in the classroom, no matter what level we teach. So again, just to reemphasize Gagne's how he classifies performance of our students into 6 types of learning. That's specific responding, chaining, multiple discrimination, classifying, rule using, and problem solving. Enjoy the video, and I can't wait to see your suggestions.
From 0 to 60 seconds, this is a Public School Minute.
Good evening, I'm Natty. And yes, I am a talking car that can also read a teleprompter. How is that possible, you ask? Well, it's really quite simple. I owe it all to PWIM. Here's more. The Picture Word Inductive Model, or PWIM, uses pictures containing familiar objects, actions, and scenes to draw out words from children's vocabularies. Words are shaken out from a picture. The words are categorized and read as a class over a series of days. This leads to reading and writing sentences and eventually forming paragraphs with the words. Saskatoon Public Schools is one of the few divisions using PWIM, and the results are staggering. On average, PWIM kids are reading half a grade level higher than others as measured by a standardized reading test. Oh, nice. It looks like I just got
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse, and the tears come streaming down your face, when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below, when you're too in love to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Tears stream